He thought he was saving a life. She knew she was bringing the war inside. The twin sons of Erythra? 9 hung low in the sky, casting long blood-orange shadows across the barren desert. Jagged rocks jutted out of the crimson sands like broken teeth, and the wind howled, carrying grit that stung exposed skin. The mining colony of Kestrel Outpost clung stubbornly to life here, a cluster of metal domes and solar panels that glinted in the fading light. Smoke rose from the central refinery, where machines worked endlessly to extract rare minerals that were worth more than gold back on Earth. Captain Jaron Cole walked along the edge of the colony's perimeter, scanning the horizon with his binocular visor. He had been on countless missions across the galaxy, and danger was a constant companion. But something about this planet made even him cautious. The storms could appear without warning, and rumors of alien predators in the wastelands had unsettled the miners for weeks. His comm crackled. "Cole, all clear here." "Sensors aren't picking anything unusual," said Mirathani, the colony's communications officer. "Copy that," Jaron replied, though his instincts told him otherwise. The desert did not feel empty. He had learned long ago to trust those instincts. A faint shimmer caught his eye near a ridge of jagged rocks. He froze. For a moment he thought it was a mirage. But then he saw her. A figure lay motionless, half buried in the sand. Her skin shimmered faintly, almost iridescent, and her limbs were thin and graceful. She was unlike any human or alien species Jaron had encountered before. Her clothing, or whatever it was that covered her body, was torn and caked with dust. One arm was bent unnaturally, and you could see shallow cuts along her shoulder. Without thinking twice, Jaron sprinted toward her. His boots kicked up sand, his heart pounding. Each step brought him closer to the unknown, but he had learned that hesitation often cost lives. "Hold on," he shouted as he reached her. He knelt down carefully, feeling the heat of the desert sand beneath him. She was breathing, but faintly, and her chest rose and fell in shallow movements. "You're safe now. I won't let anything happen to you." Her eyes opened. They were large, glowing faintly green, and intelligent. They studied him calmly, without fear, as if she already knew something about him that he could not understand. "Easy, easy," he murmured, gently lifting her into his arms. She was surprisingly light, almost unnaturally so. Jaron activated his personal shield to protect them both from the approaching wind and sandstorm. He began the long trek back to the colony, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He was certain she would not survive long alone in the desert. By the time he reached the outer fence of Kestrel Outpost, the first miners had noticed the commotion. A few gathered, their faces painted with confusion and fear. "Cole!" "Who's that?" shouted Derek Moss, one of the senior miners. "She's hurt." "I found her in the desert," Jaron replied, laying her carefully on a padded stretcher. "We need medical assistance immediately." The colony medics rushed over, their equipment already active. Dr. Selena Farrow, the chief medic, scanned the alien quickly. "I've never seen a physiology like this," she murmured, adjusting her visor to analyze the irregular heartbeat and energy readings. "We need to stabilize her now." Jaron watched, tension knotting his chest. He had saved countless humans and even some non-hostile aliens in the past, but something about her felt different. She was not just injured, she carried an aura of mystery, almost like a presence that demanded respect. The medics worked quickly, injecting nanobots and administering stabilizing drugs. Slowly, her breathing steadied. The lights of the infirmary reflected off her skin, giving her an otherworldly glow. She opened her eyes again, this time focusing directly on Jaron. "You saved me," she said, her voice melodic but strange, filled with subtle undertones that made it feel almost like music. I did," Jaron said carefully, unsure if she understood him fully. "Do you need help? Can you talk?" She nodded slowly, though her eyes betrayed a hint of calculation. She seemed to understand everything, but chose her words carefully. The miners whispered among themselves outside the infirmary. Some were angry. Some were afraid. Rumors of hostile aliens were never far from human imagination, and an unknown creature walking into their colony brought instant fear. Mirathane, monitoring security feeds, frowned. "Captain, you realize that everyone's going to freak out when they see her fully awake." "We need a plan." Jaron nodded. "We give her a chance to recover. I'll explain as much as I can. No one is to touch her or interrogate her without my permission." Hours passed. The desert storm raged outside, sand battering the colony walls. Jaron stayed beside the alien, who now moved with more strength, sitting upright and observing everything with careful precision. "What's your name?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then spoke a word that sounded alien to human ears. Lyria. Lyria, Jaren repeated, letting it roll off his tongue. I'm Jaren. You're safe here, but I need to know, why were you out there alone? She studied him for a long moment before answering. I was escaping. Her voice was calm, almost too calm, but there was a shadow in her eyes that hinted at something more than simple fear. Jaren frowned. From what? From who? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the windows at the storm outside. From war, she said finally. The word carried weight, and Jaren's heart tightened. The thought of war on this planet, of anything beyond the colony's borders, was terrifying. But it also made him wonder. If she had come from a war, then why trust humans? Why be here, injured and vulnerable? Dr. Farrell finally stepped forward. She's stable, she needs rest, but she's conscious enough to communicate. I suggest we let her sleep and monitor her vitals continuously. Jaren nodded, sitting back in the chair beside the bed. His mind raced. He had rescued her thinking he was saving a life, but he couldn't shake the feeling that she carried something deeper, something that could change the colony forever. Outside, the miners continued their work, but whispers of the alien spread like wildfire. Some feared sabotage, others feared that she might be a scout for an enemy species. Jaren knew the truth, or at least part of it, would not come easily. Night fell on Erythra. 9, and the twin moons rose, casting silver light across the red sands. The colony settled under the protective domes, unaware that the rescue of one life had already set unseen wheels in motion. Jaren watched Lyria as she finally drifted into sleep. Her chest rose and fell steadily, but her mind was clearly active. Even in rest, she seemed aware of everything, watching, learning, calculating. The storm outside mirrored the tension inside the colony, a silent promise that nothing would remain the same. Jaren leaned back, exhausted but unable to sleep. He had faced many dangers in his life, but this felt different. He had acted out of instinct and humanity, thinking he was saving her life. What he didn't yet know was that she was bringing something with her, something that could change the fate of the colony, perhaps even the future of humanity itself. And in that quiet, storm-lashed night, 2 destinies began to intertwine. One human, filled with courage and hope, and one alien, burdened with secrets and the weight of a distant war. The first part of their story had begun, but the real challenge, the one that would test Jaren, the colony, and humanity itself, was only just on the horizon. The days passed slowly in Kestrel Outpost. The twin suns of Erythra, 9 rose and fell over the red desert, burning the colony in a golden haze by day and chilling it to near freezing at night. Jaren Cole could not shake the feeling that their rescue of Lyria had done more than save a life. It had changed something fundamental in the colony. Lyria had begun to move with more strength and agility, learning quickly how to interact with the humans around her. She was polite, observant, and careful, but her eyes missed nothing. Every miner, every machine, every panel of the colony's control system seemed to be under her subtle study. At first no one noticed. Humans were busy with their work, extracting minerals, repairing machines damaged by sandstorms, and ensuring life continued despite the harsh planet. But small things started to go wrong. A light panel in the central refinery flickered and went out. The communication system briefly glitched, making static hum through the colony's network. Mining drones occasionally froze mid-task, then restarted without explanation. Another glitch? Derek Moss asked as he wiped sweat from his forehead, staring at a control panel. The system is brand new. It shouldn't fail like this. Mirathani frowned at her console. I'm not sure. It's like someone's probing the network. Not hacking, more like testing weaknesses. Jaren had noticed the same signs, but he refused to suspect Lyria immediately. He wanted to believe that humans and aliens could coexist, that compassion and trust could bridge even the deepest divides. But something in the quiet, calculating way she observed the colony made him uneasy. He decided to watch her closely. In the infirmary, Lyria moved with grace, touching screens and adjusting machines with a precision humans rarely matched. She asked questions, not about the colony's defenses, but about the people who lived there. She wanted to know their routines, how humans interacted, how they made decisions. Jaren observed her one morning as she sat with Dr. Celine Farrow. You ask a lot about the miners, he said cautiously. Why? Lyria turned to him slowly. Her green eyes were calm, unreadable. I am learning, she said simply. To understand is not to judge. It is necessary to know how things work. Jaren nodded slowly, Though unease tightened in his chest, there was truth in her words. Understanding was not inherently dangerous, but he had learned in decades of exploration that knowledge could be a weapon as easily as it could be a tool. Meanwhile, the colony itself began to feel the pressure of unseen interference. Small disagreements between miners flared into arguments. Supplies were misplaced, causing tension and fear. Machines malfunctioned at critical times, forcing humans to improvise and adapt. At night, Jaren walked the outer perimeter with his scanner, feeling the desert wind bite at his skin. He could see the faint shimmer of sandstorms on the horizon, but his focus was on the internal issues. He had faced alien threats before, hostile species, unknown predators, but this was different. This was subtle, intelligent, like a predator that watched without revealing itself. In the infirmary, Lyria sat quietly, seemingly absorbed in observing the humans around her, but in her mind she was far from idle. Every weakness in the colony's systems, every fear in their hearts, every misstep she observed was carefully recorded. She was a scout, a harbinger of a war that humans could not yet perceive. She did not hate them. In fact, she found herself fascinated by their resilience, their cooperation, their small acts of bravery. But duty to her species weighed heavily on her shoulders. She had been sent here to prepare the way for a larger invasion, to weaken humans subtly before the full force arrived. She had not expected them to survive the rescue. Yet here they were, humans capable of kindness, bravery, and ingenuity. That was unexpected. One evening, Jaren entered the infirmary as Lyria sat examining a human medical device, holding it in her hands as if studying its essence rather than its function. "You seem very skilled with our machines," Jaren said. "They are simple," she replied. "The principles are universal. Energy flows, sensors respond, systems adjust. Once you understand the patterns, control is possible." Jaren's stomach tightened. Control. The word lingered in his mind. He wanted to trust her, but every instinct he had screamed caution. "Do you intend to harm us?" he asked carefully. Lyria looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "Harm is a human perspective," she said softly. "I act for the greater purpose of my people. You are not my enemy." Her words made Jaren pause. The weight behind them was undeniable. She was honest, but honesty was layered with duty, and duty could be dangerous. Outside, the colony was still uneasy. A group of miners discovered that several machines in the refinery had been reprogrammed subtly, though they could not understand how. The errors were small, almost insignificant, but enough to disrupt production if unchecked. Fear began to ripple through the colony. Jaren gathered the miners in the central hall. "Listen," he said firmly. "We have an unknown factor here. That does not mean we panic. That does not mean we act without thinking. We adapt. We work together. That is what humans do best." The miners nodded, some reluctantly, some with resolve. Jaren's words had an effect. Despite their fear, humans were capable of overcoming threats even when invisible. Meanwhile, Lyria watched from a distance. She noted the human ability to unite under pressure, their clever improvisation, their ability to find solutions even when systems failed. It was impressive, far more than she had expected. In the following days, the malfunctions continued. Lights flickered, drones halted mid-flight, communications briefly dropped. The colony began to suspect sabotage. A security team was dispatched to investigate, yet each time they found nothing concrete. It was as if the problem existed only in the shadows, always one step ahead of them. Lyria's role was subtle. She did not directly harm humans. She did not act as a soldier or a spy in the traditional sense. Instead, she allowed the environment to do her work. She tested reactions, observed decision-making, and identified strengths and weaknesses. Yet her fascination with humans grew. Their ability to act with empathy even when survival was at stake impressed her. She had expected only fear, conflict, and weakness. Instead, she saw courage, resourcefulness, and ingenuity. Jaren noticed the changes in her behavior, though he could not fully explain it. "You're learning faster than anyone I've ever met," he said one evening, standing by the infirmary window while Lyria adjusted equipment. "I must," she replied. "Knowledge is necessary. Preparation is necessary. Survival requires understanding all possibilities." Jaren sighed. "I just hope that what you're preparing for doesn't put us all in danger." Lyria's eyes softened briefly. "You are unusual. I did not expect humans to show kindness so readily, even to a stranger." He gave a small smile. "Kindness is not weakness. It is strength. Something you'll understand eventually." For a moment, silence fell between them, filled only by the hum of machinery and the distant roar of the desert wind. Outside, the colony continued its work, oblivious to the tension building within. But tension was building. Jaren could feel it in the air, in the careful way miners avoided certain rooms, in the flicker of lights and the hesitation in the operation of machines. Something was coming, he knew, though he could not yet name it. Lyria, too, felt it, the quiet stirrings of the war she carried with her. It was distant, yet inevitable, and soon the humans would face challenges far beyond minor malfunctions. Yet for now, she continued to learn. She watched, she measured, she adapted. And in the process, she began to respect the humans in a way that surprised even her. They were fragile, yes, but their resilience, their courage, and their intelligence were formidable. Jaren stayed vigilant. Every day, he checked systems, monitored miners, and kept a careful eye on Lyria. He trusted her, but his instincts warned him not to let that trust become blind faith. He did not yet know the truth of her mission. He only knew one thing. By rescuing her, he had invited the war closer than he could ever imagine. The desert outside continued its endless rhythm of heat and cold, wind and sand, storms and calm. The humans of Kestrel Outpost went about their lives, unaware of the subtle, unseen threat growing among them. And in the quiet corners of the infirmary, Lyria continued her study of humanity, preparing, observing, calculating, always ready. In that tense balance, two forces coexisted, human ingenuity and alien strategy. The first could save them. The second could destroy them. And in the heart of the colony, Captain Jaren Cole would have to navigate both, learning what it truly meant to protect life when the enemy is invisible and the stakes are higher than he had ever known. The first cracks had appeared, invisible but undeniable, and the storm, both outside and within, was only beginning. The colony of Kestrel Outpost had changed. The small anomalies that began as flickering lights and misfiring machines had grown into a creeping sense of unease that spread through every dome, every corridor, every mining shaft. The humans were uneasy, whispering about sabotage, about spies, about threats they could not see. Jaren Cole felt it too. The air was thick with tension, and he could sense eyes on him everywhere, though he knew that many were merely reflections of fear. Lyria moved among them with quiet precision. She did not act openly hostile, yet the subtle disruptions persisted. Drones halted mid-flight, supply systems misread data, minor power surges affected machinery at critical moments. Each incident seemed harmless alone, but together they began to strain the colony's rhythm. Jaren walked the corridors, checking systems and talking to miners. He had to reassure them, to maintain morale even as he felt the invisible pressure growing. "We adapt," he told them repeatedly. "We work together. That's what humans do best." But even as he said it, a part of him wondered, had he underestimated Lyria? One evening while checking a compromised control panel in the refinery, Jaren found something that made his heart tighten. Hidden deep within the system, he discovered alien code, small, almost imperceptible modifications to the colony's network. Someone had been manipulating their systems deliberately. He called Lyria to the control room. "I need to know what this is," he said, pointing at the screen. Lyria's green eyes flicked briefly to the data. She said nothing at first, observing him as if measuring his reaction. Then she spoke, quietly, deliberately. "You are correct. This is my doing." Jaren froze. "What? Why?" Her voice remained calm. "I am a scout. My mission, my purpose is to prepare the way for my people. I was sent here to observe, to test, to weaken you from within before the war reaches your worlds." Jaren felt a chill run down his spine. He had rescued her thinking he was saving a life, yet now he realized that life carried a silent war with it. His instincts screamed danger, yet he saw something else, calm, intelligence, and even restraint. She had not harmed anyone directly. Her actions were subtle, calculated, but not deadly. "You're what?" he asked slowly. "You're here to destroy us?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "Not yet. I am here to prepare, to observe, to influence outcomes subtly, to save some lives while sacrificing others if necessary. But I did not expect you."
"You didn't expect what?"
"You did not expect compassion, you humans. You are unpredictable. Your actions are not always logical, yet they have strength. You saved me, trusted me, despite knowing nothing of me. That is unexpected." Jaren's hands tightened into fists. "You've been testing us, undermining us. You've caused fear, chaos. You've put my people at risk." "I observed," Lyria said simply. And in observing, I learned, you have value, far more than I imagined. That is why I hesitate. That is why I must choose carefully what to do next. Jaren stepped back, his mind racing. He realized the truth. This was not a battle of weapons, but a battle of knowledge and strategy. Lyria had the upper hand. She understood the colony's systems better than they did, and she could manipulate outcomes without anyone realizing. Yet he could not see her as an enemy entirely. Her restraint, her intelligence, and her subtle respect for life made her more than a simple scout or spy. And that made the danger even more insidious. Over the next several days, the colony faced increasing tension. Minor accidents became more frequent, and human fears amplified small errors into crises. Miners argued over responsibilities, teams blamed each other for simple mistakes. The colony's usual order began to crumble under pressure, though no one could point to a single cause. Jaren worked tirelessly to repair trust. He held meetings with miners, explaining what he had learned without revealing the full truth about Lyria. We have challenges, he told them, but we face them together. We rely on each other because humans are strongest when united. Do not let fear divide you. Lyria watched quietly. She was impressed by Jaren's ability to inspire, to guide humans even when the invisible weight of her mission threatened to undo them. She had expected them to falter, to panic, to break under pressure, but they had not. Their resilience intrigued her. That night, Jaren returned to the infirmary. Lyria was sitting by a window, gazing at the twin moons over the desert. She did not speak until he approached. You could stop this, he said. You could undo everything you've done or leave quietly. But you haven't. Why? Because I am bound by duty, she said. And yet I am learning. You humans, your choices matter. You are capable of courage, ingenuity, and compassion. These are variables I did not anticipate. Jaren sat beside her. You understand fear, but you do not understand courage. We act even when we are afraid. That is what makes us human. Lyria turned her gaze to him, studying the intensity in his eyes. For the first time, a hint of vulnerability appeared in her expression. Perhaps, she whispered. Perhaps you are correct. Perhaps I underestimated humans. The next morning, a serious incident forced the colony to confront the invisible threat. A mining drone carrying volatile minerals stalled midair, its energy core overheating. If it had exploded, the entire section of the colony could have been destroyed. Jaren and a team of engineers raced to stabilize it. Lyria was there, moving quickly, analyzing the systems with precision beyond human capability. Together, they managed to avert disaster. Afterwards, Jaren confronted her again. Why help us? You could have let it fail. I am not cruel, Lyria said. I am a scout, not a killer. I act according to strategy, not emotion. But I see now, emotion has power. Humans use it wisely, even when unaware. Jaren shook his head in disbelief. You're complicated. I am, she agreed. And you, human, are not simple either. That is, interesting. In the following days, the colony began to stabilize, though tension remained. The miners respected Jaren's leadership more than ever, having seen the near disaster and his decisive action. But the invisible presence of Lyria's intelligence lingered, subtle and constant, like the hum of the desert wind outside. Jaren realized something crucial. Lyria was not merely a threat. She was a mirror. She reflected both the best and worst of human potential. If humans allowed fear to dominate, she could exploit it. If humans acted with courage and ingenuity, they could turn even the most subtle threats to their advantage. The colony's systems began to function normally again, thanks to the combined efforts of humans and Lyria's quiet assistance. But the psychological tension had left its mark. Fear had been sown, doubts lingered, and trust had been tested. Jaren knew the real test had yet to come, the moment when humans would face not just minor sabotage, but the full scope of an alien strategy aimed at war. One night, as the twin moons cast silver light across the red desert, Jaren stood on the observation deck. Lyria joined him silently, looking out over the dunes. You're thinking about the war, she said quietly. I can't stop, Jaren replied. I saved you, thinking I was doing the right thing. But now, I realize I've invited a challenge we may not be ready for. Challenges are opportunities, Lyria said. You humans, you act differently than my species. You rely on intuition, courage, and cooperation. These are qualities I did not anticipate. That is why I hesitate. Jaren looked at her. Hesitate? That's perhaps, she said, but also wise. I am learning that humans are unpredictable, and unpredictable can be powerful. They stood in silence. Two beings from different worlds, both aware of the tension rising within the colony. The invisible war was not yet fully revealed, but its effects were already shaping the humans, testing their limits and teaching them lessons about resilience, courage, and unity. Jaren knew that the next steps would be critical. Every decision, every choice, every act of ingenuity or bravery could mean the difference between survival and disaster. And Lyria, he realized that she was not just a scout, not just a threat, but also a teacher. In a strange way, she was preparing the humans for something greater, something far beyond their understanding. The desert winds howled outside, carrying grit and the promise of storms. Inside the colony, fear, courage, and intelligence danced together in a delicate balance. Jaren understood now that survival would require more than strength. It would require wisdom, unity, and the human spirit. And Lyria, watching quietly, understood that the human she had been sent to weaken might just be more dangerous than she had ever imagined. The war within had begun, the red desert of Erythra. 9 stretched endlessly beyond the colony walls, bathed in the light of the twin suns. Kestrel Outpost had endured storms, sabotage, and fear, but nothing tested it like the knowledge that the enemy was already inside. Captain Jaren Cole stood in the central hall, staring at the monitors that displayed the colony's systems. Every minor disruption, every flicker of malfunction, every argument among the miners, it all traced back to Lyria, the alien they had rescued weeks ago. But now, Jaren understood something crucial. She was not their enemy. Not yet. She had the power to destroy them quietly without leaving a trace. But she had also shown restraint, and that meant something. He turned to Lyria, who was standing quietly nearby, her green eyes reflecting both the lights of the monitors and the weight of her mission. "We need to talk," Jaren said. "I anticipated this conversation," she replied softly. Her voice, melodic and precise, carried no fear. Only calculation. Jaren took a deep breath. "I know what you are. I know why you're here. But I also know that destroying this colony is not your only choice." Lyria tilted her head. "It is my duty. My mission requires me to prepare your people for what is coming. I was sent to weaken them. That is the order. And yet you've helped us stabilize systems. You've avoided direct harm. You've observed us closely," Jaren said. "Why?" For a moment she said nothing, watching the humans bustling through the hall, repairing machinery, talking, laughing despite fear. "Because I see potential. You humans are stronger than I anticipated. Stronger than my species gives you credit for. Your decisions, your courage, your ingenuity, they are unpredictable. And unpredictability can be powerful. That is why I hesitate." Jaren nodded slowly. "Then help us. Not because it's your duty, but because it's the right choice." The alien considered him, her gaze steady. Finally she said, "Very well. I will assist you, but understand this. My people will arrive. The war is inevitable. This is only a temporary measure. You will need every strength you have." Together, they worked quickly. Lyria guided engineers to reverse the subtle manipulations she had introduced into the colony's systems. She explained the patterns, the vulnerabilities, and the timing, showing them how to fortify the colony against further infiltration. Miners and technicians listened intently, absorbing knowledge that, even minutes ago, they could not have comprehended. Time moved fast. Outside, the wind howled and sandstorms rose over the desert like rolling walls. The colonists worked tirelessly, trusting in Jaren's leadership, and now, hesitantly, in Lyria's guidance. Despite their cooperation, fear lingered. Some miners whispered behind closed doors. Could they truly trust her? Was this a trap? Every human instinct screamed caution, yet every act of bravery and ingenuity proved they could survive. Even under pressure they could barely understand. In the command room, Jaren and Lyria analyzed the final systems. "We're almost there," Lyria said. "If this works, the colony will be secure, at least for now." "What do you mean?" Jaren asked. "The threat I carry, the war approaching, is beyond your current capability. You may survive today, but the larger invasion will test every skill, every strength, every decision you possess." Jaren swallowed. "Then we prepare. Humans always prepare." The final hours were tense. Alarms triggered false warnings, only to be corrected by the engineers with Lyria's guidance. Minor malfunctions that could have caused disaster were neutralized just in time. Every human acted with courage and ingenuity. Every decision mattered. Finally, the systems were stable. Lights flickered steadily, drones operated perfectly, and the mining processes resumed without interruption. The colony exhaled, though the underlying fear remained. They now knew the war was coming, and that the enemy had almost been inside their walls unnoticed. Jaren looked at Lyria. "You've helped us. You've changed the outcome." She inclined her head slightly. "I have. But understand this. My mission is not complete. I was sent to weaken you. I chose otherwise. That is not a guarantee for the future." "And if your people arrive?" he asked, his voice steady. "Then you will need every ounce of strength you have, and I may not be able to assist." The colony needed celebration, but none came. Relief was muted, replaced by vigilance. Humans repaired what they could, strengthened what they could, and learned from every mistake, and through it all they retained their humanity, their ability to cooperate, to problem solve, and to act bravely under pressure. In the quiet of the observation deck, Jaren and Lyria stood together, looking out over the desert. "Do you ever wonder if humans are worth the effort?" he asked. "I have wondered," she said softly, "and I believe they are. Their courage, their compassion, their ingenuity, they are remarkable. Perhaps one day they will be ready for what is coming." Jaren nodded. "We'll be ready. We always find a way." Lyria's gaze lingered on the horizon. "I hope so. For all our sakes." The next morning, the colony began the slow process of normal life. Miners returned to their drills, engineers tended machinery, and children played within the safety of the domes. The threat, though real, had been delayed. Humanity had endured the invisible war, had faced fear and uncertainty, and had come out stronger. In the infirmary, Lyria prepared to leave the colony for now. Her presence had been a paradox, both a potential threat and a guide. Jaren approached her. "You're leaving?" he asked. "For now," she said. "I must return to my people. But know this, you have proven yourselves capable. You may yet survive what comes." Jaren extended his hand. She hesitated briefly, then touched it lightly. It was a gesture of respect, a recognition that transcended species. "Goodbye, Lyria," he said, "and thank you for teaching us, in your own way." She nodded, then turned and left, disappearing into the desert under the light of the twin suns. In the days that followed, the colony reflected on the lessons learned. Fear had been confronted, challenges had been overcome, and every human had contributed in some way. The story of Lyria's presence would remain in their memory, a reminder that strength, courage, and unity were humanity's greatest weapons. Jaren walked through the colony, watching his people work, laugh, and rebuild. He realized that the true victory was not just survival. It was the growth, the understanding, and the courage that humans showed when faced with an invisible threat. They had faced the unknown, and they had prevailed. And somewhere beyond the Red Desert, Lyria carried the knowledge of humans back to her people. She had come as a scout, intending to weaken them. She left with a newfound respect for a species she had underestimated. The war would come, yes, but the humans of Kestrel Outpost had already proven they could face the unimaginable with courage and ingenuity. In that realization, Jaren felt hope. Humanity had survived the first test. They had been challenged by an enemy within, by uncertainty, and by fear. And yet they had endured. The twin moons rose over Erythra, 9 once more, casting silver light over the domes of Kestrel Outpost. The desert storms continued, relentless and unyielding. But inside the colony, humans moved with purpose, with courage, and with the indomitable spirit that had always defined them. The war was far from over. The challenges ahead would test them further, and the unknown would never fully disappear. But humanity had shown what it could do: survive, adapt, and rise stronger than before. And in that, Captain Jaren Cole understood a simple truth. Even in the face of a war beyond imagining, humanity, through courage, ingenuity, and compassion, could stand against the darkness and endure. The story of rescue, trust, and unseen threats had come full circle, and though the future remained uncertain, the humans of Kestrel Outpost had proven one undeniable fact. They were not helpless. They were capable. They were strong. They were human. And that, in the eyes of the galaxy, was a force worth noticing.